Hello and welcome to the Nerds At Large Spoilercast full Season 7 Game of Thrones discussion. I think that was a pretty decent way, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm one of your hosts, Darby Allen.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
And I am very excited to have a special guest, Jenna Schiferl. Oh gosh, I completely messed it up. Jenna Schiferl.
Yes, you got it. That's me.
I literally had to ask, and then I went and added some weird inflection on the E. I don't know what exactly that was.
No.
I was overthinking it. But how are you doing, Jenna?
Doing well. Ready to discuss this season.
I am too, and because if anyone has been listening to us, they know how me and Jeff feel. They've heard this 1,000 times. So I would like to start with you.
Ooh, okay.
How overall, just broad look, how do you feel about Season 7 Game of Thrones?
I loved it. I was very excited by the fact, well, actually, okay, now I'm like second guessing myself. I enjoyed it from like a basic, like viewer's standpoint. And what I mean by that is like, I think it was really exciting to see people finally cross paths and like interact with each other. This is what we've been waiting for like, I don't even know how many years,
7.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was just like, that obviously like base level was super exciting. I did have some other thoughts about how it did seem at sometimes kind of like contrived almost, or like, there
was a change, definitely.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift from the other season. So,
right.
Mixed feelings how I feel about that. I probably will rewatch the entire season and then have a different opinion about it, but...
Yeah, I would say, definitely, I'm in a similar vein, where it's like, it's hard to say, like, I definitely can't come out and say, like, I didn't like it or something, because, like, I was, like, cheering at the TV multiple times, or I was just amazed, like, some of the most incredible stuff I've ever seen in a TV show happened this season, some of the most incredible things in this show happened this season. But it's definitely, like, I'm kind of in an internal fight with myself over it, because certain elements, like, visually, I don't think I have any complaints, at all. Like, some of the, like, I hate the name of the battle, they're calling it the Loot Train battle, but, I mean, just that, like, I like the Rose Road Rumble. Fans made that name. I like that one a lot better. But that battle was insane, with Daenerys coming over with the dragons, burning up the soldiers, all that stuff. It was crazy, and it felt like every single episode had something like that at the last 20 minutes of it. Like, it was just gonna ramp up and be some of like the biggest spectacle you've ever seen in your life. But on the same token, I feel like all that stuff kind of came at the cost of some of the more like clever writing that we saw like in earlier like seasons. I kind of felt like, I think it's partially because of the shortened, it was only 7 episodes instead of 10. I think that was a big part of it. But I felt like a lot of the like character development kind of fell flat for me, or like things were happening and I was like, this doesn't feel earned, and stuff like that. And I know you feel similar to me, but
yeah.
the more I think about it, the more of that level of stuff, like the less I like it. Because it just feel like it was just, we were moving at such a rapid pace, and that it felt like we were writing to just hit plot points, and it was just like you could almost see, like, we know that George gave them bullet points, like the writers of the show, bullet points that he plans to do. You can almost see those bullet points, and it's just like they just did whatever they had to do to get there. Like, they kind of threw logistics out the window. How are you thinking, Jeff?
A lot like you, the whole thing, yeah, like you said, there are definitely bullet points there, and I think, at least me and Darby can agree, we like a lot of those bullet points.
Yes. Yeah.
How we got there, necessarily, it's the main problem, or how rushed it felt.
Right. And I think after every episode, like, me and Jeff were saying, like, I don't necessarily mind what's happening, it's just kind of how it's happening, and, like, how we got here that was weird about that. And it's weird. Like, I don't want to complain so much about this because it's still my favorite show. Even though, I mean, I don't watch all that much television, but it's by far still my favorite show, and I'm still so excited about it. And I love how we ended. I thought that finale was amazing. And I know Jeff felt the same way. That was like, I felt like that was the Game of Thrones writing I had kind of been missing.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I was talking to a coworker about it, and I completely agree. I think it was from a surface level, I mean, it was an epic season because of all these like major plot events were happening. But I do agree at the same time, like it seemed rushed and a little bit. And if you try to delve deeper into the depths of the characters and the complexities and all that stuff, it kind of, you're right, it did fall flat. But what I will say about the finale was that exactly what you were saying is that it is kind of like the big lead up to something that I was expecting, because I said things were going too well this whole season. All the good guys are still living. Minor characters are dying, but like we don't care about that. And I was like, this is on the uphill.
Even all the minor characters weren't dying.
Pour one out for those no-name wildlings.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and so I was like, this is way too good to be true. I was like, we're on this uphill. Something bad has got to happen, and I haven't read the book, so I didn't know what it was going to be. But I think that the finale was, as much as it like killed me a little bit inside, I was like, that's kind of what I was expecting more of this season.
Well, and I kind of like that. I feel like, especially with just how visceral and crazy the season's been, I think going into this finale, we were all waiting for something like crazy, like violence to happen and everything. And it kind of didn't. Like, it ended up going more, like, it was more of, like, the actual writing and the plot points were more interesting than it wasn't, like, a Red Wedding type thing or something like that. But they built it like it could have been. And that's what I thought was really, like, smart about the way that, like, them walking up there, like, you felt uneasy the whole time. And they get there, and, like, Cersei's not there, and they're all just, like, looking at each other. And then, like, Bronn walks Podrick out, and they, like, linger on the shot of him. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. This is weird. Like, I'm just waiting for something terrible to happen. Yeah. And then it kind of didn't, but it did it in a way you weren't expecting. And that was... And just, we're going to kind of, like, go all over the place. But that scene with Tyrion and Cersei was great. Like, that was one of the best scenes in a long time. Because just Lena Headey and Peter Dinklage are incredible.
Yes.
At what they do. And like we were saying, like on our spoilercast for last episode, I like where we ended up with this, with like Danny and John.
I didn't even second guess you.
I know, you guys just let me go. With them fighting in the north, and like they, Cersei like kind of bought herself some time by saying that she would go, but she's not. And Jaime's breaking away and doing that, which is so exciting. I thought that Jaime would never get out of there. I'm like, it's like
going solo.
It's like, thank God, like get away from her. And I like where we ended up. It's just I didn't care for the whole plan to like go get a White Walker and show it to Cersei. Yeah. Even though like in the end, like kind of like. I like the scene. I love the scene of them showing the White Walker to Cersei. It was still just a weird plan to me, and it happened so fast. It was just like, in one scene, Tyrion was like, "Yeah, let's do this," and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's a good plan." I'm sitting here like, "No, it's not. This is stupid. You're gonna go like risk all of your lives for Cersei."
Right.
Like, it seemed weird to me, but. And that's what I mean. Just like that road to get there was weird, but I like where we ended up.
In addition to that, another kind of hole in their plan was that, they said they have this entire army of the dead. What is Cersei's like army? Like, what is it? The mercenaries? Like, what is that going to really contribute? Like, is that really make that much of a difference? Is it worth traveling and capturing a White Walker just to like gain her support? And they already know that Cersei cannot be trusted at all, so it seemed like a very
like on the one hand, if I'm like Jon and Dany, even if Cersei goes to help, like I don't really trust those Lannister soldiers. If I'm like fighting next to Lannister soldiers and we're starting to beat the White Walkers, I'm just waiting for them to turn on me or something because I just don't trust Cersei. But at the same time, I can kind of understand it because, and it's probably what's going to end up happening now is Jon and Dany are going to go fight the White Walkers. Obviously, like their army is going to get probably very like damaged and decimated, even if they win. Yeah. And then if they turn around and Cersei just hasn't even fought anyone and she's in full force, she could just like wipe up the leftovers of them and take the whole realm. So I kind of get it from that standpoint. It was just, and that's what I can't really think of an alternative, but something about it just seemed weird. Yeah. About that plan and just how like everyone was just like, "Yep, let's go."
You're right. They're all.
I hear you, but like, also you just said, what other way could they have done it to convince her other than show her one?
Yeah.
As they like said multiple times this season, like you have to see it to believe it. Right. Like, with the White Walker threat. And you even see that. Like, I think Cersei, like, she saw it and she believes it now. She's just that much of an evil person that she's, like, going to take it, use it to her advantage. Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, that's...
What
Cersei.
What I did think was interesting about that scene was when, it had all the suspense leading up to, like, when they tried to, like, release it and, like, nothing happened and it was just, like, silent and she was kind of like... but I did think when it finally did, the jump scare almost, like, you saw Cersei's, like, what I thought was, like, one of, like, the most, like, genuine, like, expressions of, like, emotion from Cersei, which we've never seen before, so that was cool, but,
Well, you really only ever see her mad or sad over her kids dying. Those are usually the only two emotions she shows. To see actual fear on her face is, kind of a telling there. But also, just moving on, I have to ask the question for, like, everyone I talked to Game of Thrones about.
Yes.
Are you Jon and Dany shipper?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I like this.
Is everyone else? Is this an unpopular
Me and Jeff
opinion?
are not.
Really?
So, like,
okay.
I'm glad that you have a different opinion so that we can talk about it.
I was, at the beginning of the season, I was not. I was like, they're related. No.
I think someone made the joke that for about a total of 2 minutes the show had no incest when Jaime left Cersei, but then like 2 minutes later Jon and Dany,
like,
the incest train's rolling again.
Yeah. That's the thing, and I was not about it. I don't know what exactly changed it, just because I don't know, like, I'm a sucker for, like, I think that the romance played out very nicely. It was not, like, overdone. It was the whole back and forth between him, like, not bending the knee and her, like, that's what she wants. I don't know. I don't really have, this is horrible. I don't really have much of, like, a logical basis. I just really love both of them.
It's something you feel. If you bought it, you bought it.
Exactly. And I personally did. However, I don't know what is going to happen now that, like, this, even though the viewers already kind of knew it, it's now going to be revealed to Jon because of the brand vision, all that stuff. So I don't know. I've heard a lot of speculation that this is gonna, like, just when they're, like, finally coming together, this is gonna, like, become more of, like, a power struggle and stuff. I don't know how I thought about it. I was like,
it would be kind of a like traditional George R. R. Martin Game of Thrones type move for it to be like this too, like, because I think a lot of other people, I don't think Jon will care that much about having the Iron Throne. I think that he would give that up, but Daenerys has shown, like, in her past before that she can be kind of, like, power hungry and unforgiving and stuff like that. I could see, even if Jon says that he'll give her the throne, I could see her not completely trusting it or feeling uneasy with him being alive there and maybe, able to claim it. I don't know how far that would lead her, but I could definitely see there being something there.
Well, let's go back to something everyone pretty much discussed at the beginning of the season, their first meeting. This is a discussion pretty much everyone already had. Yeah. But now it leans...
The context is different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now it kind of leans more, she might, like, believe him because she knows him now, she loves him now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, she might believe him, or she might want to stay together or whatever and rule together.
I mean, in an ideal world, like, this, my initial thought was, like, this is great, like, Daenerys, like, he already, like, bent the knee to her. I agree. I don't think he's much for titles. I mean, for the majority of his life, he was considered a bastard, and he kind of accepted it, and he kind of owns it now. So I'm like, this is perfect. Like, now it's like he is, like, I don't know, royalty, but, he's the heir. She is taking names. Like, that was already on her path. I was like, why can't you just join forces and do it together now? Like, that is what I want to see happen. I can definitely see it.
Between the two of you, you're so legitimate.
Yeah, but I can see why she she should be concerned. I don't, she'd be naive not to be a little bit worried.
It's easy for us as people who have been watching both of these characters for so long and we kind of know how they operate, for us to be like, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you actually think about it, like, just from a people vying for the throne perspective, this is someone who legitimately actually does have a better claim to the throne than you, and if he decides to push it, like, it's true. Like, if people could believe him because he actually does. Like, everyone else, Dany, like, it's interesting. Dany's entire arc and all of the hell that she's gone through has been all based on the fact that she's like, no, this is my throne. Like, it's supposed to go to me. this is like everyone else is just like usurpers and pretenders and stuff. Like this is supposed to be my birthright. And then what's she gonna do if she does get to the impasse of it's actually not, like this guy actually is the heir to the throne? I kind of don't think that, like, you know, she kind of hides behind the I'm doing this because I'm supposed to, when actually I think she's doing it because she wants it. And I think that could come to a head if when she's presented with Jon, who actually does have a better claim than her.
There's probably something I want to do, but Jon seems like the type of character who'd be like, once he finds out and, you know, Daenerys brings up, people are like, let's don't even bring this up to anyone. Just keep this between us. I don't care.
Well, we have learned this season that Jon is like one of the worst communicators.
This is true.
He
can't lie.
World, so.
Yeah.
He also doesn't talk to Sansa at all. Remember that, like, from the first 2 episodes? Like, I remember, sorry, we're jumping around, but the first episode, I think it was the first episode, either first or second episode, like, the first time Jon, like, dropped the bomb on Sansa and, like, Sansa called him out in the front of all the lords. That first time I was like, come on, Sansa, don't call him out right there, like, in front of everyone. But then he did it again the very next week when he was going to Dragonstone. I'm like, just talk to Sansa.
Right.
What are you doing? Like, at that point, I'm like, yeah, she has to call you out because you don't tell her anything.
Right.
And then, like, they're also like, Sansa didn't know any of this was happening with Jon and Daenerys because he just doesn't. Just send the Raven, dude.
Yes.
Send the Raven. Come on.
Yeah.
Send those magical teleporting ravens.
When he finally gets back to Winterfell, I just want someone to be like, dude, come on.
They comes back for the kid.
They're like, sure, why not? You know, you don't tell us anything anyway.
This is a slight digression, but I think this is in the last episode when Sam comes and speaks to Bran. He talks to him. He's like, he's the three-eyed raven and something, and he goes, "How did you know this information? Like, did you see it in a vision?" And Bran just holds up like a scroll, like he got it. And I thought that was just really well
was so
done.
funny.
Like,
Good scene. Good scene.
yeah, he said.
Also, people pointed out, like, Sam, like, totally just, like, took Gilly's thunder. Like, Gilly, isn't Gilly the one that revealed that? Like, come on, Sam.
Yeah.
That's true.
I read it in the books. Like, No, you yelled at Gilly for reading it in the book, but
Yeah.
but we've diverged. I do want to talk about, like, Jon and Dany. Like, it's one of those things. I agree that, like, the actual, if you just look at, like, face value of just, like, their acting and, like, kind of the plot, like, the building of their romance, I think, yeah, I mean, like, I think some of it was done really well, especially, I mean, the final scene there. Like, as much as I have not been a fan of it the whole time, I did feel something in that scene, because just with the voiceover with Bran, and then it was just, I mean, the music, the way it built up and everything, and even Tyrion's weird stalking.
It wasn't just a sex scene. It was, like, a well thought out.
It was, yeah. And they, like, tied it all, and it was just, like, I mean, because the show just uses music so well, but, like, the, you know, music, like, building onto it, that was good, but that was kind of the first time I somewhat kind of bought it. Every single scene before this, I've just kind of been like, this just felt like a plot point. It didn't really feel earned to me, and I think it was because it just happened so fast. If this was over the course of, like, a full 10-episode season and we kind of saw more building blocks, I think maybe I would have bought it more. But because it was just like they met, very next episode they're, like, overtly flirting. The next episode they're practically about to kiss, and then the next episode they're having sex. And I'm like, it just...
You're right.
It happened very fast, and me and Jeff talked about it over and over again. I just kind of feel like Jon and Dany getting together is just so kind of tropey.
The
You're
two
also
main
right.
characters.
Yeah. You're also right. You're not wrong, you know.
I mean, it's just everyone has different takes on it.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is maybe if Game of Thrones was just something we weren't waiting year to year, like, waiting for, maybe it wouldn't have mattered as much, because, like, I've been thinking all off season, like, this is probably going to happen. This is probably going to happen. I don't want it to happen. And then it happened. And I'm like, But,
so you were predicting this, like, in advance, like, before you
kind
the
of.
season? Okay.
I mean, like, I thought, like, if they did meet, I thought there was a decent chance that they would go down this route.
Yeah.
Especially since the show writers are kind of writing their own story at this point.
Right.
Even though George might do it too, who knows? I mean, the show is long past the books now, and they're kind of.
I've said this about a lot of things. I feel like it's one of those big things. Unless he really takes it in a different direction, that's gonna be something that's in the book.
Probably. I mean, like, it seems too big to be that much of a divergent.
Yeah, when it seems like people who mainly like the books. I'm not saying you, Darby, but you know, just people in general. When there's a plot point, they people don't like, especially no matter how big it is, they're like, oh, it'll be different in the book. It's like, this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it will be drastically different, but like a lot of like, especially character relationships, and character relationships between like the two main characters, I feel like that's something that will be hard to have completely different. But who knows? I mean, it is something that like that's just kind of catchy TV to have the two attractive leads, to get together. So who knows? But I do like the way that the whole romance arc left me off on a good note. I can deal with it now. I'm not like completely thrilled about it, but I can come to terms with it. And maybe by next season I'll feel something more. But also like I don't want we can't forget the fact that this is aunt and nephew. It is a little weird.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah.
And I'm just literally like everyone's just like. I loved it with Cersei and Jaime. They're like, ew, incest, and then Jon and Dany. They're like, ooh.
I think why it's different is because we knew from the beginning that Jaime and Cersei were twins. That's what we were first introduced, and then the incest came later, not far after, because I think it was literally the first or second episode.
The end of the first episode.
First episode when that was
Bran gets pushed out.
Right. So, but with these two characters have always been separate entities completely, and this was never even like a thought. And so even though I now know this information, it's easy for me to like just kind of like push that to the back of my mind, because that's in my mind. That's not who Jon is still Jon Snow,
And I guess it probably does. It still is incest in truth, but I guess it's a little different when Cersei and Jaime got together, full well knowing they were brother and sister.
Right.
Jon and Dany have absolutely no clue that this is.
My main problem with it, I guess, not necessarily the incest, but we mentioned earlier, the way it was set up was kind of weird and really quick, and didn't really work out for me for the most part.
That's what the problems I have with it are kind of multiple levels.
Yeah. And
it is something, again, I feel like if it was a 10-episode season, I probably would have gotten over it more. I probably would have I would have initially still not liked it, but I probably would have been like, okay, well, they're doing it all right.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, just felt rushed.
It did feel pretty rushed. Also, I did want to talk to you about the battle sequences and stuff. Those were amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And did you see, any of the behind-the-scenes stuff with that?
I watched the first, HBO released, the behind the episode. Have you guys heard about, the 12-minute thing? I watched that, but they didn't focus.
Yeah, there was a 15-minute one or something.
Okay.
Where they were, they actually set people on fire.
Oh, what?
Yeah, with that battle, the loot train battle or whatever. They actually had 12 dudes on top of this great thing or whatever. They set them on fire. They had to flail around for 10 seconds, and then they extinguished it. It's crazy. And the people they interview, some of the actors doing it, they said you have to hold your breath or you basically suffocate.
Wow. I
hope they get paid good money.
I'm sure they did. There's no way they didn't. You would have to pay me.
I can't imagine that job.
So much money. Yeah.
Can we light you on fire for the show? Wow.
But that and the dragons this season, I felt we've come a long way.
Yeah.
With them. I remember, I think episode 9 of season 5, when it was, the never-ending story shot of, Dany sitting there and the dragons, flying around her, and it looked like a video game, basically.
Oh, I mean, you could tell green screen and everything was involved.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You could just see her, and you could see, her outline, and it was just, the background was moving, but she was sitting there. It was, yeah, we've come a long, long way.
Yeah.
This is a short time.
And those things are, intimidating. Those things are very believable.
Yeah, I feel I know this isn't true, but I feel like we've seen more dragons this season than definitely any time before.
Yeah.
They said that in the battle, I keep referring to that battle again, but they said there was 80 shots of her and the dragon in that 20-minute thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think they said in all of season 5 there was 5.
Right.
So they really upped that
Dragon budget.
crazy.
Yeah.
Which I love it because usually I'm very picky about CGI. Usually I can when CGI is bad, it kind of pulls me out of it. Part of why I hate the prequels of Star Wars and I hate lots of stuff like that. But this was you believe that that's a dragon. When the dragon's sitting on that hill behind her, when she burnt the Tarleys. it looks like that's a dragon on that hill, and
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of insane. Yeah.
It was amazing. I agree.
And what was I gonna say? Oh, the Euron, Euron like fighting Yoren. You kind of forget about that. It feels like a while ago now. Especially, I remember that was episode 2, right?
Sounds right.
So that was like, okay, well, we're going there in episode 2. It's like, here we go.
Right.
Like, already going, like...
Yeah, then for the next couple episodes, we kept on thinking, okay, they're not going to have another big battle, right? Then they did, and they just kept on going.
We just had pretty much every single episode. And then Olenna.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Olenna going out is as much of a badass as possible.
Iconic.
In that situation.
That was so good.
And now there's like so many memes of the Cersei. I want Cersei to know it was me.
Yes.
That's great. Again, just jumping around here. That's what we're doing. I think I wrote a thing for the Daily Gamecock, like talking about like some of my issues with the season, though, and I don't want to be completely negative the whole time, but I think like maybe the single most like negative thing I can say is the timeline problems. Of just, someone's here, then they're here, then they're back over here, and now they're back in like one episode. Or, not to mention that entire Beyond the Wall episode where like Gendry runs to the wall, they get a raven, send it to Dragonstone, she gets on her dragons, flies all the way back in just like a day.
Yeah.
Or something, long enough to where they have it like frozen to death.
I don't care how much math people do try to justify it. If you have to justify it this much, it's still not good.
Yeah. I feel like something that we keep coming back to is a theme throughout the season of being rushed, either like plot lines and storylines being rushed, or also physically people moving from place to place. Because before, in previous seasons, people would spend 3 weeks on a ship, and like that's kind of because that's the norm and that's what makes sense. But this season was far from that, and I think it's they had to, because once again it was a condensed season. So
yeah, in some ways they had to, and then there's other ways they kind of just used how rushed it is to get away with doing things, where they're like, okay, they're just gonna they're there, and sometimes the timeline, there was like that Beyond the Wall, there was something you could look at to see that it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's what, there were so many times in this season where like after an episode, people would have all these like questions, like legitimate, like, oh, what happened here? How does this make sense? And people had to be like, oh, well, this must have happened off screen. This must have happened off screen. And that was like every single episode. And I kind of feel like that's just kind of bad writing. Whenever your fans are having to like piece together things, just hypothetically be like, well, this must have happened. They just didn't show.
Yeah, while there are just real stretches to try to justify whatever happened.
Even when they're not stretches, it's just kind of like you shouldn't have to do all that work. Yeah, you shouldn't have to think about it like outside the show. Like this must have happened or something. Right. Your show should be able to stand on its own and make sense how it's, paced. And I do worry for next season. Next season's 6 episodes. They're going to be longer episodes.
Yeah, and the thing with that is obviously they got to deal with the White Walkers, and then we got to deal with whatever happening with Cersei.
I mean, it has to end.
A lot of people figured the Cersei thing would be done by the end of the season.
Yeah.
No matter what the outcome, but we still got that to work out.
I'm kind of glad it's not, because it makes it more interesting, but it's also like they have a lot of stuff to juggle next season.
Yeah.
And you have to try to...
And wrap it up, like include it.
wrap up like the biggest show in television.
Is a tall task.
This 8 season like epic thing that so many millions of people are watching. I don't envy them trying to wrap this up in a like satisfying way.
Only accept 90-minute episodes.
It sounds like a lot of them, they said it's going to be like feature-length episodes. Like they're going to be like movies every week, basically. Which that finale was an hour and a half long. Yeah. That's basically like a movie.
I think I did just quick math in my head. It was like 80 to 90 minutes. That means about 9 hours for the 6 episodes, which is not that much shorter than
season.
That we used to. So that wouldn't be bad.
No.
If they were that length.
Right. I mean, there is a little bit of a difference in a long episode and 2 different episodes, because it has to like thematically fit there.
Yeah.
But there's probably going to be lots of like battles and stuff. I imagine, having an entire army of dead. The dead fighting. Which I guess like predictions with that. I'm wondering like, are the White Walkers just going to move in like just one giant like army, or are they going to kind of like branch off, or are they going to make it through the north? Like, I kind of feel like they have to make it at least some distance down south for it to feel worth it. You know, if this whole, like, we've been building up to the White Walkers for 7 seasons, and then it's like, oh, we beat them in 1 episode, they never make it past Winterfell. It's like, oh, well.
Yeah. I really would like to see them move south, because then it's kind of like they're out of the traditional element that we've only seen them in.
Yeah.
And Cersei even said, this is kind of going back to like her strategy, but she said they'll have to go through the north first, and whatever remains, like we'll deal with it. But I want it to get there, because I think that would be definitely a change of pace for sure.
Okay, I got the ending shot for like episode 2.
Right.
Okay, this is how it's gonna work. Okay. Like Darcy said, they're gonna branch off. John and Dany and wherever
they are arriving in White Harbor, whatever, which I read the books and all this stuff, nerdy stuff. That's like the most populated area in the entire north. Is where they're
okay. They're gonna be there. Part of the White Walker army is gonna go there. Night King and whatever the dragon's name is not gonna be there, so they don't have that to worry about at the time. But they get destroyed. Ending shot. Dany and John flying away on Drogon. Looking at it, everyone dying.
Yeah, like everyone dying in the background. That's a decent... And the show could continue doing it's like, look at all this destruction and death, except for the characters you know.
Yeah.
Like,
but look at all this death. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And then you see the hounds just going out like a bat. Like,
Yeah. That could, and then like somehow he survives. But
yeah.
They could pull like a Robb Stark thing, or a Jaime Lannister did it now, and divert their army. Like, go here, make you think that they're fighting here, but then he goes and takes Winterfell or something. There's like kind of a history of that in this show now, is that deceiving your enemy by going in one place and also sending other people in another place. Yeah, I mean...
Sounds like something that's likely.
No, that sounds very likely. I think that's a good...
that may not that exact scenario, but...
Oh, and that could be the first time Jon rides a dragon.
Ooh.
He could ride the second dragon. They could both ride together on dragons.
Oh, yeah. He's technically not been on a dragon.
Because that's happening. That's totally happening.
Yeah, everyone's like... Well, everyone used to be like, who's going to ride the third dragon? We always got Jon.
The Night King.
Yeah.
The Night King's riding the third dragon.
I thought Tyrion was a theory that people
That was like one of the...
I kind of would like that, but...
Especially with the Tyrion is a Targaryen theories.
Oh, what?
I don't think it's real, but there is...
Yeah.
It makes more... It makes more sense than you would think, the way that people do it. Basically, like, this is not really that much of a spoiler, but in the books, the Mad King, like, had a very weird sexual and love interest in Tywin's wife.
Uh-huh.
And it was like they hint at it a lot.
Okay.
So people were wondering. And like Tyrion, like when he was born, it like killed his mom, like, you know, like,
right.
and stuff. And Tyrion's so much different than like Jaime and Cersei, like looks wise and stuff. People are wondering if Aerys actually is his father. So it's possible, but that would kind of be weird if Game of Thrones has 2 Targaryen twists. Like these 2 characters, you know, are both.
Yeah.
It's like, how many secret children does this guy have? I mean,
well, I don't know when, but there was... George could have set that up so he could see like which would be the best way to go later on with Jon and Tyrion.
There's a lot of ways. It's very clear that when George wrote book 1, he had a different direction in mind. Yeah. There's even some things that had like they're kind of like you can tell he was like foreshadowing for things that never ended up happening because you know.
Stuff changes, it happens.
So he could have been like, yeah, which one do I want? I'll just leave them both open. Yeah. They're both possibilities. Yeah. Well, what else do you guys want to talk about?
I think. Oh, I probably need to talk about Winterfell in general.
Yeah. Yeah. So what? Me and Jeff. I've talked to Jeff so much about this stuff. What did you think about the whole Arya Sansa plot and Littlefinger going down, but kind of just like the whole thing?
I think it was done pretty well, just because they completely fooled me up until that. They did a very nice job of leading you to believe that
I honestly believed that
Arya was going to die.
Yeah.
And that was something that was just like a victory where you're like, I was watching it and I was so excited because we have all known from day one that Lord Baelish is a snake, and this is what he does, and it's finally nice to see some justice. So I was definitely about that, and I think I was really excited about the relationship between Arya and Sansa and how that has become a little bit more complex, especially since it's been so long since we've seen them in the same place. Right. And I think they have a lot of potential to do stuff with that, but it's not what I was expecting at all.
No, and it is it is like I like how this plot was like from the very beginning of this season. A lot of us were thinking like, even if we didn't predict Arya would be there, we're like somehow Sansa's gonna get wise and take it down like Littlefinger in this game. You know, we like that's something everyone's been predicting from the very beginning. But and obviously the showrunners, they knew that that's where they were gonna end up, but they managed to. Like, we all expected that, but they managed to twist it so much to where we doubted ourselves. And by the end of it, I didn't think that's where it was going, and then it did. So it was cool to where, like, you know, they were probably sitting there in the room. They're like, all right, well, this has to happen, but how do we make this actually interesting? Everyone knows this is going to happen. How do we... And I think they did.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of, like, the finale kind of made up for some of the... Because I did feel like, as we were going through it, I was like, this is kind of weird. It's like, why is Arya like buying this? Or, you know, I was like, come on, just like he's so slimy. Just
right. I think it was beautiful the way they did it, absolutely. And I think what was nice about this, like one of the things that I liked was that they did kind of take, not necessarily like as long as it could have been, but they did take their time where it kind of happened over the course. Like he put this fear in her mind like a few episodes prior. Yeah. You know, and they had the confrontation when she found the face. And, so in that aspect, I think that's part of the reason why it was done so well is because this all happened in one episode. It was kind of building a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's actually one of the plots they did kind of take their time with. And even before the Arya got there and they planned that, you kind of saw Littlefinger being Littlefinger. Like, every single episode, I felt like there was some scene with Littlefinger where he's like talking to a Stark kid and like, I loved your mother and all this
whispering
stuff.
in their ear. Like,
John hitting him. It's just like, Littlefinger's so just... Ugh.
Let it go, dude.
So yeah, that was like build up pretty well, and I like Sansa being like, I'm a slow learner, but I learned. So it's like, you know, like I could buy them, you know, not trusting each other, but they finally taught to Bran. The whole season, I was like, just talk to Bran. He has all the answers you need. He's like, he's right there.
They didn't want to pay the actor to be in more episodes, okay?
When Bran had that, like, I can't remember the exact quip that he said to Littlefinger, which was something...
chaos is a ladder.
Yes. When he... Oh, that was so good. And I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. I was like, what did he just say? And like... Yeah. But that was also well done, I think.
It was one of the... I'm glad it ended up... Because if it had just like... If Littlefinger had ended up winning this and like Sansa killed Arya, whatever, and then Bran was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, like he's completely setting you up, so you just did that for nothing." I'd be like, "Come on."
Right.
You know? Or if they just never even mentioned Bran, I'd be like, "Come on, he's like he can see everything. Right. Just talk to him. Like he's Littlefinger's biggest weakness is sitting right there in a wheelchair."
I did find it funny. I mean, obviously it made sense now, but when Arya walked in, we were thinking it was going to be her trial. Bran just chilling there next to Sansa. It's like, what are you doing there? And saying nothing.
A lot of people were smarter than I was, and when they saw Bran, they immediately knew, like, oh, this must be a setup, because there's no way Bran's just sitting there being like,
Yeah.
I just thought that, you know, Arya was just going to direct some fools, like, to get everyone in that room. Because apparently she could do that now.
I also I saw like when someone put like, you know, Littlefinger like went up to the Eyrie guy and was like, I command you to take me safe to the Eyrie. The guy said you can't fast travel while enemies are nearby. Which I thought that was great. And again, I love where it ended up. Arya and Sansa are finally good with each other again, which I was worried was not going to happen. Yeah. And
they can get ready for the great battle.
Which is also interesting. How is Sansa going to react to Daenerys? Because once again, with Jon not communicating to people, Jon has kind of decided the fate for all of the North without talking to them. Like, he hasn't been there to say anything to them. How is Sansa and just the rest of the North going to react? Because up until this happened with Arya and like Littlefinger and stuff, and until like the army, the dead are coming down, like I've been thinking that like Sansa's obviously kind of in her own sort of power hungry streak, and they've even like Arya directly said it multiple times that you're like hinting that she's trying, you know, to usurp Jon basically. Right. And I've kind of like, maybe it's another misdirection, but I've kind of been buying. I could see that, like, if she was already having these thoughts, and then Jon comes down, like, oh yeah, by the way, I bit the knee to a Targaryen, and then on top of that, Bran like,
rolls up, like, oh, by the way, Jon, you're a Targaryen.
You are right.
Especially if you just think of it like the Lords in the North, that's not a good look. You learn that your leader, who you already kind of don't like anymore, is a Targaryen, and he bent the knee to a Targaryen, even though he didn't know it. It looks bad.
Oh yeah.
And especially if it already looks bad and then Sansa, like, goes against him, that could be all she wrote. The only saving grace is there's an army of ice zombies coming down, so you might not have time to even worry about any
the
of
politics of it.
Yeah.
Right, but...
That's probably not going to matter very soon, but...
Right.
It's very interesting. I like that setup a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I like Sansa being there, and I like the kind of, like... It makes it where it's not all hunky-dory between, like, the northern
Well,
army.
I know the northern people declared Jon King the North partly because, well, like they liked Jon at the time, but I wonder, they'll quickly change their mind. They find out he's a Targaryen, being like, well, Sansa's now, like, I guess the true heir, because she's Ned
She's a
Stark's
Stark.
child.
Yeah, she's
Right,
actual
she's
Stark.
And they're
the
not
eldest.
and Bran's already pretty much said why he not gonna do it. So.
Right. She's the three-eyed raven now. I don't know what that means. It's hard to explain.
Well,
But-
he mentioned they wouldn't want to cripple anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, the happy ending of this would be Jon, like, Sansa aids Jon with, like, fighting and everything, and, like, allows Daenerys to, like, be the actual, like, top-level queen, but Jon lets Sansa rule the North, and Jon is just peace out of it. That's the happy ending, is that everyone gets what they want. Jon doesn't have to be king anymore because he directly said he doesn't want to be.
Right.
And Sansa does want to be, so, you know, that would be the happy ending.
I feel
And
like...
at one point I would have said that the happy ending is not what we're getting in Game of Thrones, but a lot of times this season, a lot of things...
Yeah.
There was a lot of opportunities to kill people or to do some
And-
crazy Game of Thrones twist, and then they kind of pulled out of it at the last
Yeah.
second a lot.
I think, I think in some ways, like, Sansa was, like, almost born to be in this position. Like, you know, she's always been concerned with, you know, royalty and that kind of, like, the prestige of that stuff. But then between, like, her marriage and her time in the South, like, she definitely knows the politics and how, you know, to get people to trust her. And I don't know, I could stand behind that. I like seeing her in this position of power. She's doing a pretty, you know, good job so far. But
I do too, and you can almost argue that she has more qualifications than Jon to be a, like, political leader. Like, Jon, as a military guy, he's great. Like, he's led armies and done all this stuff with the wall, and he's, you know, he has the respect of people and everything. But, like, as you saw, like, in King's Landing, Jon's not good at this. And the, like, actual, like, politicking and stuff like that. Whereas Sansa is. Like, she learned from bad people, but the best people, Cersei and Littlefinger.
Yeah.
If you think, when it comes to playing the game and, like, being, you know, leaders like that, they're nefarious, but they're good at what they do.
Yeah, and Sansa will hopefully be better 'cause she's not, at least right now, an awful person.
she's not corrupted yet, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's been a part of Sansa's arc, is, like, will she take the good parts of Cersei and Littlefinger but be a better version, or will she basically just become one of them?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you know, interesting to think about, especially going into all of this. All right, well, I think we can start to wrap up, but do you guys have any other...
I don't know, are there any other big things we've got to talk about?
Do you think me and Jeff both, like, predict that Theon's gonna die saving Yara, and that's gonna kind of be, like, the end of it, is that after everything he's been through, he gets to, like, go out fighting and die.
I think that would. I don't know if I would say that I expect that. Well, yeah, I could see that's a very possible
I could
outcome.
definitely see it, yeah.
And I would be okay with it.
I mean,
he's been through a lot.
Yes.
And, you know, I think I think he would be proud, like, to go out that way, because he's been criticized for being a coward.
Yeah.
So.
Which I think me and Jeff both had to take. Like, whenever he jumped off the ship, everyone was like, "Damn it, Theon!" I was like, "I don't know. He's a broken man. Like, I can't."
That was in character.
Yeah.
You can't really
Yeah.
blame him too much. You haven't gone through what he has gone through, and it's even the whole time. Even when Yara brought him back, like, he never seemed like he was okay. Yara just kind of, in a way, like, this sounds worse, but she kind of, like, bullied him into, like, get over it.
Which
and,
is,
like, be tough, and it's just, like, you know,
kind of what he needed, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you know, there's only so much, and I don't know.
Yeah, so, yeah.
it is so freaking, like, satisfying, though, to finally see Theon maybe go on his full redemption arc to fully come back.
Yeah, for right, our full prediction was Theon will die saving Yara and then mess up Euron going to get those
Golden Company.
Yeah, Golden Company.
I feel like the only way that, like, that we, in 6 episodes in season 8, in the final season, the only way that that Dion's arc is actually important enough to be involved in those 6 episodes is if it has to do with Euron and this whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
If it's just Theon saving Yara and woohoo, we're done, then it's like, all right, I don't know, like we're kind of wasting time here.
Yeah.
So I feel like that has to like go there, whether it's because like think about it, right now, Jon and Dany have they think that Euron is going back to Pike to sit and wait it out. Mm-hmm. They have no clue about this. Theon could arrive at Pike thinking that Euron's going to be there, realize he's not, and like kill everyone there and like find out what the plan is and tell Jon. That could be part of it. It could be part of just letting them know. Or it could be him actually like messing it up. Yeah. Although, actually, I say that, but Jaime could just tell them if Jaime is going up north to join them. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. It's kind of hard to predict exactly.
Yeah. Like you said, for the importance of the overall plot, he probably doesn't need to mess up what Euron's doing.
Right.
As far as what we know for right now.
Yeah, it has to do something. I'm also interested in Jaime going forward. Jaime's always been one of my favorite characters, and this just made me like him even more. And that he's gonna be with Tyrion again, gonna be with all these people. I'm excited about that. Very, very excited.
Yeah, he's finally going to be like kind of independent from Cersei, and at the same time, I think they have kind of another thing. I don't know if this is just me. This is oddly specific detail that I remember from earlier in the season, but it was when what was the battle? The loot. What do you call it? The
loot train. That's what they named it.
Battle.
Everyone hates the name.
And so I just distinctly remember Jaime was there. Tyrion was there to support Dany. And when Jaime got super excited and was like ready to charge, you can hear it cuts to Tyrion saying like, you idiot. Yeah. And I don't know if this is just how I interpreted it, but it was like, was he talking about Jaime or was he talking about Daenerys? Like, which one is he concerned for, saying you stupid, like Daenerys got off her dragon to pull like an arrow out, or is Jaime stupid for charging? He's like, he wants to protect both of them. And so I said that was something that I kind of thought, because Jaime was always good to Tyrion like growing up and stuff, and so that was he
was like the only Lannister that was good to Tyrion.
Yeah, so
I definitely took it as Tyrion was talking to Jaime.
Yeah, because he's charging. He's trying to be the hero on the battlefield, but he's charging straight to a dragon, and it's like Tyrion's probably, you're going to die. You're going to die. And it's like, he probably should have died.
Yeah. The Braun's a really good swimmer.
Yeah.
Strong arms.
He has like really strong arms.
Yeah.
Immediately after that conclusion, I typed the words "is Jay" into like my Google search, and the first thing is Jaime dead was the first thing that came up, and I was like, oh my god, it knows. Like,
I'm so glad that I watched Game of Thrones as it comes out, because I don't know how people avoid spoilers. It's insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that was, I felt like, just going on that a minute, that was like one of the most like crazy moments of the entire season that was kind of cheapened by the way it was resolved. It was all this mystery. Yeah. Like, is Jaime gonna be dead, or is he gonna be captured? Is he gonna be a prisoner? Is this or whatever? Nope. He just they swam him to the edge of the pond. They got
a nice dip.
Yeah, like he literally like fell into the water a few feet away from Daenerys. This is Jaime Lannister. You're telling me that they didn't go in after him? Or literally all you have to do is just send people to surround the pond. He has to come up eventually if he's going to.
Or he has a gold. What I thought was he has a gold hand. Like he could just like sink.
Well, and his armor.
And full
and armor.
And full plate armor. Somehow Broad was able to like, pull him out.
To just like let him sink to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah.
They both didn't drown.
Well, like I think when we were talking about like with him having the full plate armor, he fell in right next to Daenerys. I'm like, he's either dead, which would be like the craziest thing. Like that would have been a Game of Thrones type mode. We're talking about how they like dodged the like, big hitting moments like that. That would have been crazy if Jaime just randomly dies in the middle of the season that no one's expecting it. Right. So either that, or it's like if they're gonna keep him alive, he has to be a prisoner. Like obviously they're gonna fish him out or something. And he's gonna be captured, and then like we didn't even consider that they're just gonna he just goes on his way, because just that was like the weakest writing of the entire thing. I feel like, but
it went from shallow to really, really deep.
That too.
In a couple feet.
Yeah.
He was like at the edge of the water, and then suddenly he was in like 30 foot water.
Scene. Yeah.
It's a very, very deep pond there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredibly deep.
It's just like. That'll help audio listeners. I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you catch that?
Yeah.
All right, well, I feel good about it. Overall, it was fun. It was a fun season. Unfortunately, Game of Thrones is kind of getting into more of kind of like turn your brain off and watch the spectacle type thing, which is still fun. It's just not exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but unfortunately, at least for us, it's what most people want or are easily accepting.
Yeah. I mean, it's still fun.
Yeah.
I still have the books, maybe, for the Game of Thrones. That what if George ever puts them out? We'll see.
George's gonna write the spin-offs and say, "Screw the books."
That's kind of what he's been doing.
Yeah,
he has released lots of side Game of Thrones things in the time.
not on the TV shows.
Yeah.
Which will be coming in a couple years, probably, I guess.
Which will come out first, Winds of Winter or the next season of Game of Thrones? We shall see.
I think we all know what the answer is.
I think we do. Well, any parting thoughts, Jenna?
Oh, I think we hit most of my biggest takeaways. That I enjoyed it as a viewer, but when analyzed more deeply, it kind of, overall I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's one of the closer you look at it, the more it kind of falls apart, writing wise, as opposed to other seasons. Yeah. But still better than season 5.
I mean,
we also, we had our moment, we already celebrated it earlier this year, but Doran is gone, so don't feel that anymore. Claps for that. All right, well, thank you for joining us, Jenna.
Thank you for having me,
and thank you everyone who has listened to us. I'm kind of gonna be sad that we can't talk about Game of Thrones every week. I've enjoyed doing this, but
me too.
Soon, not soon, but
not
probably
soon.
like a year and a half, we'll be able to do it again. But if you're interested in any other sort of spoilercast things, we're gonna try to pick up doing more other movies and stuff like this now that we're not doing a weekly Game of Thrones thing on top of the.
BoJack Horseman comes out this week.
Yes, very excited about that. You should watch BoJack Horseman.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you like video games, check out the Nerds at Large gaming podcast. That also posts every single week. And so thank you all for listening.
Thank you.